Hey guys, it's Chris at Highline Guitars and you're watching another Luthier's Quick Tips. Are you one of those guitar players who likes to equip your guitars with the highest output pickups that you can find? And it doesn't matter whether we're talking humbuckers or single coils. I know there are a lot of you out there who like to go with the highest output you can find in a guitar pickup. And now, of course, to get the highest output, you have to go with active pickups. And what I'm talking about is passive pickups, you know, where you don't have to use a 9-volt battery to power a small onboard preamp. I'm just talking about your typical, ordinary pickups. And a lot of folks like to go with the really high output because they feel that's what they need for the style of music that they play. Especially if it's an aggressive hard rock and heavy metal style of music. There's that intense need. It's almost like it's driven by testosterone to really power your guitar with as muscular a pickup as you can find. So a lot of guitar players will start to look at the DC resistance that a pickup is rated at, and they look for the highest level of DC resistance. And usually for a high output pickup, we're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of, I would say, over 10,000 ohms of DC resistance on up to as high as you can go. And in a passive pickup, I think the highest output that I've ever seen was the Mighty Mite Mother Bucker humbucker pickup, which is somewhere around 20,000 ohms of DC resistance. So really it's anywhere from 10,000 up to 20,000 ohms. And oftentimes when you buy those kind of pickups, they're fitted with a ceramic magnet. And the reason for that is the higher your DC resistance, as you put more and more wire on the coils to get that high DC resistance, you start to lose some of the treble and some of the mid-range frequencies in the outgoing signal. And that's just a characteristic of a high wind coil. So what pickup makers will do is they'll put in a ceramic magnet, which can help restore some of those lost treble and mid-range frequencies to sort of balance out the tone. And the reason why ceramic works well for this is because ceramic magnets have a pretty strong Gauss rating. When you measure it, it tends to be almost double what you would find in, for example, an Alnico 5 magnet. So if you were to use an Alnico 5 magnet in a pickup that has a DC resistance of, say, 15,000 ohms, you're going to find that that pickup sounds very, very dark and can actually sound kind of muddy because you start to lose those treble and some of the mid-range frequencies. So to prevent that, the pickup makers will use a higher Gauss magnet like the ceramic magnet to sort of restore that. Well, one of the problems is you may not be getting exactly the tone that you're hoping for. Yeah, it may be loud and powerful and it will drive an amp into distortion without too much effort, but you may not be getting exactly the tone that you want from that pickup. What can you do to solve that? Well, one option, and this is something that not a lot of people are aware of, is that you can swap out that ceramic magnet for an Alnico 8 magnet. Now, an Alnico 8 magnet has very similar Gauss properties to the ceramic magnet. Maybe a slightly less or lower Gauss rating, but it's very close. So as a result, using the Alnico 8 is going to help to restore some of those lost treble and mid-range frequencies. But at the same time, the Alnicos do a much better job of creating sort of a well-rounded, balanced tone, balance between your treble, your mid-range, and your bass. Whereas the ceramic magnet tends to push it harder towards the treble frequencies, which can make it sound maybe a little too bright, too crackly. So if you decide you want to go with the highest output or a higher output pickup for your guitar, then you may decide as you're playing it that that tone isn't quite right. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're stuck with it. All you have to do really is to swap out the magnet. I would encourage you to try a fully charged Alnico 8 magnet. And I'll put a link down in the description below where I find a lot of the different Alnico magnets I use, including Alnico 8. Now, one of the problems that can come up with a high output single coil is you really can't change the magnet because the magnets are the slugs, but that's not in all cases. I think you'll find when you're starting to look at really high output single coils, what they actually do is they'll have just regular steel slugs, and then they'll attach a magnet to the back. And that magnet is oftentimes, with the high output pickups, it's oftentimes a ceramic magnet. And if you don't like the way that pickup sounds, if it's too bright, you can always remove that magnet and replace it with an Alnico 8 and see where that gets you. And it's important to understand that there's a wide range of different Alnico magnets, all the way from Alnico 1 all the way up to Alnico 9. And there may be even some beyond that, but what I've had experience with is from Alnico 1 all the way up to Alnico 9. And each one of those magnets has a different composition of the elements that are used to make it. It's usually iron, aluminum, nickel, cobalt, and a little bit of copper, and in some cases some titanium. But for the most part, the majority of the composition is iron. And then each of the different kinds of Alnico magnets have different ratios of the aluminum, nickel, cobalt, copper, and if there's titanium, that as well. And what happens is you get, with those different compositions, you get not only different levels of the Gauss or the magnetic strength, but some of the other characteristics of the magnetic field are slightly different with each type of Alnico magnet. So really it almost would behoove you to select several different magnets, several different Alnico magnets, and swap them out to see how it affects the tone of your guitar. I can tell even before I put a magnet in what that pickup is going to sound like, but that's because I've made so many pickups over the years, and experience plays a big part in making that determination. But if you don't have that experience, you're going to want to try different magnets to see how it's going to affect the tone of your guitar. And the good news is magnets are generally inexpensive, so you can buy a whole bunch of different ones and try them out until you nail the tone exactly the way you want. And then if you don't want to keep those other magnets, you can just throw them up on eBay and sell them. But when it comes to the really high output pickups, the high output passive pickups, you're pretty much relegated to either the ceramic or the Alnico 8. You could try Alnico 9 if you wanted to, if you can find it. But those are the two magnets that you can deal with. And one of the other nice features of the Alnico 8 is that if you have a stronger magnet, like a neodymium bar magnet, you can actually reduce or increase the Gauss level of the magnet without too much difficulty, and that can really help you to fine-tune the tone that you're after. It's not as easy to do that with a ceramic 8. They tend to come fully charged, and really with a stronger neodymium magnet, you don't have that opportunity to adjust the Gauss levels that much. You need a different type of charging rig to do that. So at any rate, that's this week's quick tip. If you like high output pickups but want to have the ability to dial in the tone, consider swapping out the ceramic magnet for an Alnico 8 and see where that gets you. So in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it provides you with some information about this subject, and if so, give me a thumbs up. If you don't already subscribe to my channel, please, as always, hit that subscribe button. It doesn't really help or hurt you at all. It just means you will get notifications in your timeline every time I post up a new video. And until the next episode, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you soon.